Tonight's story is definitely the reason I have a newfound fear of train tracks. So let's jump right into tonight's story. Grab your favorite tea and settle in, and let me tell you another scary Appalachia story, because of course, this is Tea After Midnight. This story comes from Anonymous. Hey Savannah, I have a story about the Appalachian Mountains if you would like to hear it. I've always been taught if you see something, no you didn't, and if you hear something, no you didn't. But I will say that curiosity got the best of me this night, and I've been really paranoid ever since. Let me set the scene of what happened that night. I was 18, freshly out of high school, when a group of my friends and I got together to hang out. Of course, being so young, we thought we were invincible, and it didn't matter what we did or where we went. There were 4 of us, and we decided to go to a nearby train track in our town and walk down it at night. It was the local legend that if you walk down the tracks by yourself at night with no light, that a man in a conductor's uniform and hat would stop you and tell you to turn around. Of course we knew this wasn't true, but we really didn't have anything better going on, so to the train tracks we went. When we showed up, it was pitch black outside and you really couldn't see much. We pulled out our phones and turned on our flashlights. We had to walk a little bit down this road to get to the train tracks. We were all talking, trying to decide who was going to be the first one to walk down the tracks by themselves. Eventually, everyone in the group landed on me and said that I should be the first one to go since I really didn't think the legend was true. I agreed and said that I would go first. We finally got to the train tracks and I stepped into the middle and looked back at my friends. They were all smiling and laughing, telling me to go for it, but I started to feel really uneasy. I found enough courage to start walking, but told myself I wouldn't go that far and I would come back and let somebody else go. I found enough courage to start walking, but told myself I wouldn't go that far and would come back and let somebody else go. I'm walking for maybe 2 minutes when I turn around to look back at my friends, but I didn't see them. I hadn't even gone that far because I could still see the road they were supposed to be standing on. I called out to them, but they didn't reply. I told them to knock it off and that it wasn't funny, but I still didn't hear or see anything. I turned around to see if maybe they had snuck by me through the woods to get behind me to try to scare me, but there was nobody there. At this point, I'm really freaked out, so I turn back around to start walking back to where my friends were supposed to be. I take a few steps and I hear my name being called from behind me. I instantly turn around thinking, of course, this was one of my friends trying to prank me, but when I turned around, I see a man standing behind me, about 6 foot tall, wearing a conductor's uniform and hat. I instantly felt sick. But then the man lifted up his hand and pointed his finger behind me and said, "Turn around and go back." The man didn't have to tell me twice. I turned around and booked it back to the car. As I'm running back to the car, I feel like I'm being chased. I turned my head to look over my shoulder and I could still see the man standing there in the same spot. I finally make it back and my friends are all there sitting in the car. I jumped in the driver's seat, slammed and locked the door, and look over at my friends. They are all clearly freaked out, asking me what happened. Before I could even answer that question, I start yelling at them because they left me out there by myself, and that definitely wasn't the plan. That's when my friend sitting next to me in the front seat interrupted me and said, "Why did you keep walking when we told you to stop and come back?" I told him that he most certainly did not tell me to come back, and that I didn't hear them say anything. He told me that they were screaming my name, telling me to come back because they saw something in the woods walking towards me. He said it looked like a tall shadow figure that had white, glowing eyes. When he told me that, I got chills all over my body. I just stared at them for a minute, and then I told them that when I had turned around and saw that they weren't there anymore and turned back around to see if they were behind me, that's when I saw the man in the conductor's uniform. Every one of my friends just stared at me. One of my friends in the back seat said, "Be for real and tell us what you saw." I turned around and looked at them with all seriousness and told them that I saw the man in the conductor's uniform with the conductor's hat, and he told me to turn around and go back. All of us were freaked out beyond belief, so I started the car and started to head back home. I'm really not sure what I saw, and I've tried to rationally explain it, but I can't. A few days later, one of my friends that was sitting in the back seat told me about one of his theories. He said he wonders if the man on the train tracks wearing the conductor's uniform stands there to tell people to turn around and go back, so they don't stumble upon the shadow figure with white eyes. All I can say is whatever we encountered there that night is something I never want to come across again. I know this probably sounds hard to believe, and trust me, had it not happened to me, I would probably feel the same way. But I can promise you that I believe in the legend now, and I'll never go to those train tracks ever again. So I don't know about you, but I'm kinda scared of train tracks now. And listen, I totally get being in a small town and not really having a lot to do, so you kind of make up your own fun. But if I would have heard about a legend talking about a man being on the train tracks in a conductor's uniform and hat, telling you to turn around and go back, I think I would have come up with something different to do that night. But that's just me. So I do want to say that I'm in agreement with the friend from the back seat, talking about the conductor standing there telling you to turn around and go back. I'm thinking that he actually is there telling you to turn around and go back so you don't stumble across the shadow figure with white eyes. I mean, that does sound pretty logical to me, so you guys let me know in the comments what you think. But that does conclude this episode of Tea After Midnight. If you have any personal scary stories you want to share, I would love to read them, and they don't have to be about the Appalachian Mountains. If you want to send it in, you can send it to the email on the screen right here or the email in the caption of this video. As always, you guys, thank you so much for watching. I hope you have the best night. I love you, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye.
So this woman said that her family used to own a plantation. She said when she was 8 years old, she woke up to a lot of noise. She didn't know where the noise was coming from. All she knew is that it sounded like it was surrounding the house. She said she ducked down, she got to the window, and she looked out there and she saw that there were a lot of men on horses. Other than the men on the horses, she said she saw a black man hanging from the tree. She said when she saw the black man hanging, she ran to her dad's room. She was crying, and she told him everything that she saw. Her dad jumped up, and he ran to the window to see what she was talking about. She said by the time her dad got there, it pretty much made a liar out of her. Her dad told her she must have had a nightmare, so she tried to get back to sleep. She went back to her room, she laid down, but she said she couldn't get back to sleep. She kept moving around because she just couldn't get that image out of her head. She said when she turned towards the window, there was a little black girl with a torn dress on with no shoes, and the little black girl was just crying. Fast forward, she's older now, and she said around this age, her dad allowed her to start venturing out, on the property more. She said there was this really big tree that she wrote in her diary under, and she said that she was just laying there, and she heard these very strong voices, and then all of these black people appeared and started singing. She said that she didn't feel scared, so she sat there. And she said when they looked over at her, they just smiled and disappeared. She said she wasn't afraid of the slave ghosts. She was terrified of the ghosts that came at night. She said it was late at night. She was in the barn and she was with her horse. She saw fire torches in the distance and she immediately knew what was about to happen. She said she peeked through the barn doors and she saw men with hoods on their heads and she immediately knew what they were. She said they began kicking and punching and really hurting this black man. She said she knew exactly who the black man was because she saw him getting hurt the same way every single night since she was a kid. She said eventually, after all the beating, they put a noose around his neck and they lynched him. She said after the black man was unalived, one of the unalivers took his hood off and she took a step back. She was just like, wow, he looks very familiar. She said this was the first time she had ever seen one of the hooded men take off one of their hoods. She said fast forward a couple years later, she was visiting her uncle with her dad. Now, her dad does not visit the uncle. The dad actually does not speak to the uncle. And she said she started to figure out why when she got to the uncle's house. She said her uncle had all of their family history in his home. She said as soon as she walked in, she was overwhelmed by pictures and tons of stuff hanging on his wall. She said her uncle sat her down and he was very excited to show her all these family history pictures. She said her dad seemed uncomfortable and he wouldn't sit down. She said her uncle is just flipping through the book, and he gets halfway through the book and stops at this picture where all of these men are holding KKK hoods. And she looks at the man that's in the front and she asked, who is that? And he said, this is my dad. Like he was so proud. She said the man standing in the front, her grandfather, was the same unaliver who took his hood off in front of the barn. She said her dad was a heavy drinker and she wondered if it was because he witnessed this himself when he was younger or if it's because he sees it happening over and over again every single night but denies it. She said every single night she would see the same black man being unalived. She said it wasn't until she was 20 years old, she was away at college, her family couldn't afford to keep it, and she said she couldn't have been happier. She says she never even came home to visit because every single night the same thing happened.
Ghosts have boundaries, and if you don't respect them, they'll come for you. Gloss on so I can run this mouth. Now let me focus. Scary story time. Fright Night Files. I need to tell you about my uncle's farmhouse in Tennessee because I have never fully made peace with what happened there, and I've been carrying it around for about 20 years now. My uncle Robert bought the property in the early 90s, about 40 acres of land with a farmhouse built sometime in the 1920s. The previous owner was an elderly man who had lived there alone for the last 30 years of his life. He had no family that anyone in the area could identify. No visitors. Neighbors described him as someone who kept entirely to himself, who they would sometimes see sitting on the front porch at odd hours, late at night, early in the morning, but he never waved and never spoke to anyone. He had died in the house, alone, and based on the condition of things when the estate finally settled, he had been dead for several days before anyone found him. He was found in the rocking chair in the front room by the window. My uncle knew all of this when he bought the property. He wasn't the superstitious type. The rocking chair had been left with the house. My uncle kept it in the same corner by the same front window where it had always been because it fit the room and because he was not the kind of person who thought too hard about where furniture came from. He should have burned it. I was 9 the first summer we visited. I felt something wrong the moment I walked into the front room and saw the chair. There was no logic to it. It was a wooden chair in a corner, but something in my 9-year-old nervous system looked at that chair and sent up a flare, and I spent the rest of that visit avoiding the front room entirely. Second summer, I was 10. I was sharing a room at the back of the house with my older brother, Danny. 50 feet of original hardwood hallway separated our room from the front room. That floor talked constantly. Every step registered, every creak announced itself. You could not move through the house at night without the floor telling on you. Which is why what woke me on the third night of the visit was immediately deeply wrong. It wasn't a footstep. It was a rhythm, slow and even, coming from the front of the house. A rocking, creaking rhythm, forward and back, patient and steady, like something that had been doing it for a very long time and intended to keep doing it. I lay in bed and I listened, and the sound did not stop and did not change pace and did not do anything a house settling in the night would do, because houses don't settle in perfect 4-time rhythm for 20 minutes straight. I got up. I don't know why. My body was terrified. I got up anyway. I walked down the 50-foot hallway towards the front room, and with every step, the rocking got louder and more distinct and more real, and I had ample opportunity to turn around, and I did not take it because I was 10 years old and something in me needed to know. The front room was dark, was moving, weighted and deliberate, rocking forward and back the way a chair rocks when someone is sitting in it. Not drifting, not slowing, controlled, like something was keeping the rhythm intentionally. There was nobody in it. I stood in the doorway and I watched it, and I want to tell you that I was brave, but what I actually was unable to move. Completely unable. My feet were on the floor and my hand was on the door frame, and I watched that empty chair rock in the dark, and then it turned. Not all at once, slowly, the way a chair turns when the person sitting in it shifts their weight and pivots to face a different direction. The legs scraped against the hardwood floor, a short, quiet, deliberate sound, and when it stopped moving, the chair was no longer angled towards the window. It was facing the doorway. It was facing me. The room was silent, the chair was still, and I was standing in that doorway at 2 a.m, and something I could not see had just turned to look at me. I ran. I got back to the bedroom and I got into bed and I pulled the covers over my head and I lay there and listened, and after about 5 minutes I heard the rocking start again, slow and patient and steady, forward and back, forward and back. It rocked until almost 4 a.m. I know because I watched the clock. In the morning I told my Aunt Carol. She listened to the whole thing without interrupting, and she said, "How close did you get to the doorway?" Not, "Are you okay?" Not, "It was just a dream." Not, "There's a rational explanation." She asked how close I'd gotten to the doorway. I told her I stood right in it, that I'd had my hand on the frame. She closed her eyes briefly and then opened them and looked at me very directly and said, "Don't ever go past the doorway. Do you understand me? You can look from the doorway, but you do not go past it. Promise me." I asked her once years later when I was old enough to ask why the doorway mattered, why that specific line. She said that in the years she and my uncle had lived in that house, she had learned that whatever was in that room stayed in that room as long as nobody crossed the threshold at night. That it seemed to have a boundary and it seemed to respect the boundary, and they had learned to respect it in return. I asked her what had happened the one time the boundary hadn't been respected. She said, "Your uncle doesn't sleep well anymore. He hasn't since the second year we lived here." My uncle sold the property 8 years ago. The night before the moving truck came, I asked him if he was going to tell the new owners about the chair. He thought about it for a long time, and then he said, "I moved it to the garage about a year ago. Thought maybe if it wasn't in the room, things would be different." I asked if they were different. Something started coming down the hallway at night. Okay, something started coming down the hallway. No, thank you. No, thank you. It gives me goosebumps. No, couldn't be me. I don't want anyone rocking and turning and facing me. And what did it do when it came out? I don't know. Scary story. Keep sending these in. They're fantastic. They're terrifying, but fantastic.
Snacks in hand. The vibe is set. And once I start, don't eat too much because you gotta stay fine. But come on, bestie. It's... Yes! Hi, my besties. I missed you. What you doing? You want to go get your snack? You want to go get your rolling equipment? Okay. Very special announcement. For everybody that's in the Jersey area or New York, we are having a dance workshop and I'm teaching Jersey Club. A 3-day workshop, and on the 3rd day, mindless behavior is going to be there and they're going to teach the choreography to Mrs. Wright. No, I didn't stutter. When we dropped the tickets, it was sold out within the hour. Just drop some more tickets. So if you want to come out, come out. Sorry, second announcement, I'm having another sale. A lot of people missed the last live sale that I did, and so I'm having another one this Friday, same time from 12 to 3. The ebook will be on sale. Won't be for $10 like last time because I can't, but it will be for $15. That is the best I can do. Anyway, on to the story. So for the sake of this story, let's call this guy Jason. Now, Jason's parents are together, right? He grew up in a 2-family household. However, it wasn't one of those 2-family households that was like healthy. It was one of those where he would have been better off. It was just one parent. He kind of like grew up watching how his dad treats his mom, right? And even as a child, like something told him like, I don't know, the way he treats her just don't seem right. However, she stays. Like, she just keeps staying. He even like used to be putting hands on her and she like would still stay. And so low-key growing up, he kind of like, he loves his mom, but he kind of low-key had like some kind of resentment for her, only because it's like, girl, do you know your worth? Me as a child, I know you shouldn't be dealing with this. I think you should leave, and you just like staying with this man. So as he grew up, when he got older, for a little while, he was really mad at his mom because even after he turned 18 and he left the house, she still stayed. And so at this point, it's like, bro, I'm not even the excuse anymore. Why are you still staying with this man? All of this is happening here in the U.S., right? On his dad's side, someone ended up passing away to where everybody had to go back to their home country. And that's what happened. Everybody went back to their home country. That was bad. Anyway, everybody went back to their home country. So he met a lot of family that he didn't even know he had. Some he kind of remembered. And all of his like favorite cousins and stuff. Anyway, so he's hanging out with his cousins and he's having a blast. You know, the whole family is kind of like in the same area, kind of, but everybody's like spread out. But his dad comes in and tells his mom to go get something for him, but it wasn't on some like, can you please get this for me? It was on some like, bitch, go get that. Except he didn't say bitch, but it was given that, you know? So he visibly like got mad. And his cousins could tell that he got mad. He tried to hide it, but then they asked him about it. They was like, ooh, you mad? He honestly was like, yeah, I'm mad. Like, bro, why? It's like, love my mom, love my dad, but like, why do she stay with him? And like, all of the cousins kind of like were talking about it a little bit. But then one of the cousins was just looking at him like, oh, you don't know. He asked him like, is there something you know that I don't? And the cousin is like, I don't know if it's my place to say it. Jason was like, well, now you gotta tell me. And so the cousin looked at Jason and said, you know your mom like belongs to your dad, right? And Jason's like, well, duh, they're married. And the cousin is like, no, like belong. Like, he bought her. Jason is like, what the hell do you mean he bought her? Come to find out, Jason's father indeed bought his mom. He grew up without a dad. She basically like grew up with her mom. However, her mom wasn't the best person in the world. Her mom used to be like out here, like
So very young, his mom kind of learned how to take care of herself because her mom wasn't really taking care of her. If anything, she was like a burden to her mom. And so y'all want to know what her mom did? One of the people she used to be outside with, if you know what I mean, she ended up bringing to the house, and he saw her. He knew her mom wasn't shit, so he was like, hey, can I buy her? I want her. She's beautiful. I want her to be my wife. Can I have her? Now, at that point, she was 16. He was well in his 20s. So she's like, no, you can't buy my daughter. So he announced a very big price. And when she heard that price, it was like, imagine the money signs in my eye. To make matters worse, she didn't accept. You know what she did? She told him, for a little bit more, I will make sure she stays yours. He's like, I don't give a fuck. Do what you got to do. I got the money. So one day, him and her, I mean like his mom's mom, they all went to a voodoo priest. This is where the transaction happened because they did work on his mom so that she remains his. That's why she's the way that she is. And this was like brain altering news for him. After that day, he could never ever look at his father the same. And although he had resentment for his mom, that switched to sympathy. For a second, he wanted to get up and punch the fuck out of his father. But then his cousin would get in trouble. He's very much aware of spiritual stuff because he's not from the U.S., you know? He's from the U.S., but you know what I mean. And so he's very well aware, very well educated. He just didn't know that that's what was happening to his mom because he basically like grew up into it, you know? So for as long as he known his mom, she's always been like that. So as he was out there, he searched for a healer. And he found one. He went with his mom. And funny enough, when his mom got to the healer's place, she refused to go inside. They had to literally carry her and drag her in. At first, he thought it was going to be like a one-day kind of thing, but like with how she was reacting and stuff, the healer was like, I need to keep her for 3 days. That's exactly what they did. Like, dad was looking for them the whole 3 days. He didn't say nothing to him. Blowing up their phone. He didn't say nothing. Probably because the shit is breaking and he knows what happens if the shit breaks. Wait, 3 days goes past. They go back home. They get home and dad is sick. Damn near on his deathbed. Mom is like out of it. But the healer did tell him, if you're going to do this, she has to leave the next day. Like, you guys have to book your flight and leave the country and go back home to the U.S. the next day. Meaning, like, the next day after the 3 days. Thankfully, you know, Jason had his shit together. He booked them tickets. Except now, he's, like, in a tough position because it's like, damn, my dad is sick. But then he's like, no, fuck that nigga. So they get to the U.S. First thing he did was take her to church. And then the church kept her for about a week. And after that, it's like he met an entire new person as his mom. And he loves this version of her. Now, it did take a very long time before she really became a person and not a shell, per se, if you know what I mean. Now, as far as the dad, he never got better. As short as a month, he ended up passing away. The day they left and went back home, he stopped speaking. From there, it was just like, never got better. Jason says he does miss his dad sometimes. However, he has to come to realize that he missed the version that he thought was his dad, not the real man, you know? Because his actions are like inexcusable. It's been about 3 years now and he lives with his mom. She is the most wonderful person in the world, according to Jason. So yeah, that's the story, y'all. Please do not miss the sale this time. And I hope to see you in class, in dance class, okay? All right, I love you.
Let's read some scary and true paranormal stories. I had just turned 22, and my parents had sold their house and purchased a place out in the country. On the property, there was a big shed not far from the house that I decided to turn into my place. Now, I felt kind of uncomfortable in the shed sometimes, but my dog kept me company, so it wasn't so bad. Anyway, I had been in there maybe 2 weeks, and one night I'm on my computer, my dog asleep at my feet, and I need to pee. So I get up to go outside to piss. It's a beautiful clear night and the stars were incredible. Next thing I hear the shed door slam behind me. I turn immediately and try to open it, but it won't budge. Now from inside the shed, I can hear my dog start to growl. Quietly at first, then louder. Now he's barking, and I'm panicking trying to get the door open. I must mention that I'm 6'5" and well built, play sports, etc., but even ramming my full weight into the door won't open it, and I'm really panicking now as my dog's barks turned into whines, then whimpering, then silence, and with all of my might, I slam into the door, and it flies open. The light is off inside now, and it's pitch black. It won't turn back on, and I am in complete darkness. I can't see my dog anywhere, and I stumble around trying to find a torch. Finally, I find it and pick it up and turn my torch, and I wasn't prepared for what I'd see next. My dog had literally squashed itself into the furthest, darkest corner of the room, eyes closed, and is shaking violently. I immediately moved towards him, and as soon as I got within reach of him, he leapt at me into my arms and wouldn't move. I picked him up, and I swear I've never ran so fast in my life. I have never stepped foot in that shed ever again, and my dog wouldn't even go near that part of the property. About a year ago, I had a terrible nightmare. It started off with me waking up in bed during a thunderstorm. As the room illuminated again and again from the flashes of lightning outside, I realized that the bed I was laying in wasn't mine. The head of the bed was against the wall the door was located on, and from my perspective, I couldn't tell if it was open or closed. That is, until I saw the face. At first, just the nose and jaw broke past the door frame, but then an entire face slowly passed through the doorway. I tried to yell, "Who the fuck are you? Where the fuck am I?" But it felt like I had lost my voice. No matter how hard I tried to scream, nothing came out, and this person continued to enter the room, looking dead ahead, away from me. Then, just as the person was completely into the room, their head snapped towards me, and it locked eyes with mine. I tried to get out of the bed but felt completely paralyzed. The person started making their way to me, but with every step, their body contorted in ways that would break a normal person's bones. Their neck snapped so the back of their head touched their back. Their jaw laid flat on their chest. Their arms had broken at the shoulders and migrated to their back like wings. Just terrifying. And just before they reached me, I woke up. The next day, I told my mom about it and went into great detail about the room. Turns out it was almost an exact copy of my room when I was a baby. We moved out of that house when I was super young. Like, I have no idea what the inside to any room looks like. Just kind of weird, I guess. I was wide awake for my story. I went to school at a college that used to be a convent for nuns. So it was a very old building with a clock tower and everything. Lots of history at this site. Anyway, I was working campus security to make extra money, and I was doing the nightly walk through one of the main buildings when I found 2 students inside one of the classrooms getting naughty. Awkwardly, I had to ask them to leave as it's part of my job, so I gave them a few minutes of privacy to get changed. I was standing outside the door to the classroom waiting for them when I heard the girl let out the loudest scream. I quickly popped my head into the door, and only to be met with them running through the doorway. After a split second of being startled by them almost running into me, I saw why they were running. Inside of the classroom, there were 3 figures standing a few feet away from each other. Each figure looked like a man, but ridiculously large. I would say around 8 feet tall and super muscular. One was all red, one was all purple, and one was all black. They were nude, but they had no sex organs. Almost like a giant Ken doll, but very scary. The figures were just standing there. They never acknowledged me or even really moved. I didn't stick around very long to see if they were going to move either. I ran to the front of the building, and the couple was already outside. I confirmed with them what they saw, and it was the same as me. I called my boss, who was a retired cop, and another security guard came to the building, and we went back into the room, and they were gone. To this day, this story still gives me goosebumps, and I have no idea what I saw. I wrote this to see if anyone had seen anything like what I saw. Last one almost sounds like aliens to me. Or maybe those are just like really freaky spirits. But I could see why that would be very unsettling and scary to see.
Good evening. Tonight's story is actually from my Uber driver. He told me this really creepy experience that he had when he went to Kirby Road with his friends. Let's begin. One night, him and his friends went out, and they were high, and they went to Kirby Road here in Ontario, Canada, in Vaughan, to be specific. And they went there and they're like, let's just check out this urban legend place. For those who don't know, it's a story. I will read it to you. It is a local legend often called a haunted road, primarily associated with the ghost of a young girl named Selena who died in a 1993 car accident. Tales include phantom cars, specifically a red truck that chases drivers, and a feeling of heavy oppression in the area. So the story is a girl named Selena who died in a car accident on the road, with sightings of her ghost under a tree or near the road. And the house is like a creepy old house on the side of a road. It's like a farm area. It's like empty dirt road kind of area. And the house is on the side, and then there's a little grave for Selena there, where it says, "I was a really cute kid" on the grave. So let's begin. So he was high with his friends. They were driving. They went to go check it out, and then I don't know why he did this. I don't allow or condone this behavior, but he went to the grave and he was provoking the spirit, or saying really terrible things. He's like, "F you" to Selena, and saying terrible things. I think he even pissed on the house or near the grave. I don't know. Anyways, I was just in the backseat you shouldn't have done that. So he did all these terrible things on the grave, horrible, and he was saying crazy things to Selena, the poor girl. And I'm so sorry to the family. I'm just telling you a story, but please, I have nothing to do with this. And he then was like, okay, well, nothing happened. I'm gonna go home. They went home. Then that night, he started hearing sounds and having nightmares. He started hearing growling or things moving around. He was going downstairs and a scissor was thrown at him from a shelf that was past next to the staircase, and it was thrown on almost missed his head. There was a lot of scary stuff that was going on in his house. He was hearing knocks on the door. He was hearing footsteps all over the house. And he was sleeping in the basement, and so he would see things, feel things, and it was very scary. It was something was really pissed off at him. He told his mom, and his mom was swearing at him. She's like, "Why would you do that? Why would you ever do that? That's terrible what you did." And she's like, "Well, now you have to beg for forgiveness and protect yourself, and put something silver, in Indian South Asian culture, you usually put something of silver under your pillow of a weapon, so it would be a knife or something like that under your bed. That's silver, that helps with warding off evil, silver, like a werewolf. So but silver you put under your bed, and then you do some kind of ritual thing to help protect yourself and things like that. And he went to bed, and he did hear some sounds, but he had to do that for a few nights till it finally calmed down. And I was like, that is crazy. I don't want to ride with you in an Uber after that, after what he told me. I'm like, I have no association with the story. I'm sorry to the spirits. Yeah, that's really messed up. So I think this story is real, and I think the terrible story that happened on Kirby Road to this poor girl named Selena, rest in peace. And yeah, don't mess around with things that you don't know about, especially with the paranormal. I'll see you guys in the next one. Stay spooky. Bye.
I have a mimic story time. In case you don't know what a mimic is a D word that can take the shape and form of a person and impersonate them to a T. It's actually pretty terrifying. When I was about 10 years old, I lived in a home where my bedroom faced the front of the house, so I could see the main street and all the cars coming and going at all times of the day. It was a Saturday morning. My mom came to me and asked if I wanted to go to the market with her. I told her yes, so I quickly ran to my room and I started rushing around trying to get ready so I could go to the market with her. As I'm getting ready, I happen to look out my window and I see my mom's car pull out of the driveway and start to drive off. My mom around this time drove a Jaguar, so it was that same car. I could see my mom in the driver's seat. I could see exactly what she was wearing, the same clothes that she had just had on a few minutes ago. And I can see that she's staring at me, but she has a very unsettling smile in her face. So I started yelling for her, like, Mom, wait, because I want to go to the market with her, and I don't understand why she's leaving when she just told me to get ready like a few minutes ago. As I'm screaming her name, I see the car completely leave, and she's gone. Just like a few seconds later, my bedroom door opens, and it's my mom standing there wearing the same exact clothes that she had in the car driving away. And she's telling me, like, why were you screaming? And I tell her, because I just saw you drive away. I literally just saw you in the car driving away. And my mom's like, what are you talking about? I have been sitting in the living room this whole time waiting for you to get ready. She told me that at no point did she ever go outside. She never left the house. So who I saw driving away was definitely not my mom. That story terrified me because it had something very similar happen to me, or to my daughter. It actually happened to my daughter. I used to come home at the same time every day after work. I would pull up into my driveway and I would go into the house. On this specific day, I happened to stop somewhere after work. I had to go get a gift for somebody. As I'm at, I think it was Marshall's. I'm at Marshall's getting a gift for one of my friends. My daughter calls me, like, kind of like, Mom, what are you doing? Like, what's taking you so long? Why haven't you gone into the house yet? She said that she saw my car and she saw me pull into the driveway and just sit there and stare at her, like stare at the house, because we had a big window in the front, and she was just standing there waiting for me to come out. And she said I just stood in the driveway and wouldn't get out of the car. So she was calling me and wanting to know why I hadn't gotten out of the car yet. And I'm confused because I'm standing out of Marshall's checkout line. I'm like, what are you talking about? I haven't been home. I didn't go home. I went to Marshall's after work. Like, I'm not there. I don't know who that is, but that's not me. And she swore up and down that it looked just like me. It was literally me, because she had a very clear view of the window and like the car. She saw me in there wearing the same clothes that I had on and everything, but I just was there. So I checked the cameras, because we had cameras. I didn't see a car in the cameras. At no point did I ever see a car in the cameras. And she said after she looked up again to like look one more time, because she thought I was messing with her, there was no one there. Like, that the person left. So that always creeped me out. So I believe in it. That was definitely a mimic. And I feel like had my daughter gone outside and like maybe let it in, I don't know what would have happened. But I ran home so fast. Thankfully, we no longer live in that house, because we always have weird things happening in that house. But yeah, I 100% believe her story, because it's real. It's true. Have you ever had a mimic encounter? And I don't know why my camera is bouncing like this, but have you ever had a mimic encounter? If you have, comment down below.
Wakes up in his hotel room with strange marks on his arm and no memory of the night before after partying with two girls. Let this story be a lesson as to why you shouldn't party with strangers. This story, which allegedly is true, came from somebody named Alex, and he says a few years ago he was working for a small independent record label, and his boss was sending him to South by Southwest, and Alex was pretty low on the totem pole at his job. He had just graduated from school, and this was his first chance at like proving himself in a work, conference, festival setting, so he was really excited. But a few weeks before he goes to this festival, he's at a work happy hour, and his boss's wife pulls him aside, and she's like, hey, I know you're going to be at South by Southwest, and my niece and her friend are actually going to be there, and I want to give them your number if you're okay with it. You're all around the same age. I think you guys would really get along. They live in a different city, but, you know, these two girls are beautiful. She's like kind of trying to hook it up, and Alex is single. He's like, what else do I have to lose? Most of the people that were going to be at the conference from his job were a lot older than him, so he was perfectly fine with meeting these girls. His boss's wife shows him a photo of the two girls, and they are beautiful. We'll call them Cassie and Marla. I don't know. And he's really interested in Cassie, which is the niece's friend. He was like, yeah, sure, give them my number. And so he starts texting the niece, and the niece is going back and forth with him. But a few days after they initially exchange contact information, she actually texts him, hey, change of plans. We're not going to go anymore. I'm selling our passes. And he's like, oh, bummer, you know, whatever. They don't talk after that. Okay. So fast forward, he goes to the festival. He does all of his work obligations. They're there for a few days. And on the last night he was there, he went kind of hard, and him and all of his coworkers were at a bar after all of their work obligations were done. And his coworkers, who were a little bit older, they end up leaving the bar early, but he didn't want to go back to his hotel. So he ends up staying out of the bar. He's partying. He's just kind of mingling with the crowd. And out of the corner of his eye, he sees these two girls like waving at him. And he looks over and they approach him, and they looked familiar, but he couldn't place them. And he was like, sorry, do I know you? And they're like, oh, we're your boss's wife's niece and friend. Like, we were talking to you a few weeks ago, but we told you we weren't going to make it, but we changed plans. Like, we did make it. Crazy to run into you. And he was like, oh, I'm happy that you guys are here. Like, you should have texted me. And they're like, yeah, sorry, you know, time kind of got away from us at the festival. It initially caught him off guard, but these girls also seemed like they had been partying. They seemed a little bit intoxicated too, and he was happy to have somebody who he sort of knew, I guess, at this festival on his last night in town. So he was like, cool, do you guys want to do a shot? And they all go to the bar and they do a shot, and they continue partying together. The night goes on, it's getting late, the bars are shutting down, and the girls are like, do you want to come back to our hotel room? We have a bottle there, we can continue the party. And he's like, sure. Like, in retrospect, it was probably a bad idea, especially because it was the boss's wife's niece, but what else was I going to do? And their hotel was only a few blocks from where he was staying, so he was like, cool, I'll go there, and then I'll go back to my hotel afterward. As they're walking back, he is really hitting it off with the friend, Cassie. Cassie says she's a nurse, she lives in Chicago, she's just here for the festival, she doesn't have any connection to music or the music industry whatsoever. They're like flirting, but everything is innocent. But when they get back to the hotel, before they go up the elevator, at one point Marla turns around and she's like, I don't mean to be too forward, but Cassie's like super into you. She's been talking about you since my aunt showed us your photo. It's like fate that you guys are finally meeting here, even though we didn't think we were going to make it. This makes Alex feel good. So they go back up to the room. Everybody's still drinking. Everybody's still partying. They do have a bottle up there. They're passing it around. They're doing shots. And then things started to get hazy for him. But to be fair, he said he had been drinking for several hours at that point. And the last thing he remembered before he completely blacked out was Cassie asking him if he had ever heard of the Carter brothers. And he was like, no. And he said the memory of this is hazy, so he did have to look this up to fill in the blanks. But basically, the Carter brothers are this legend in Louisiana about these two brothers in the 1930s. And these men had claimed to be vampires, okay? They were keeping people in their basement, and one of their hostages had escaped, flagged down police, and told the police these two guys were keeping a number of people in their basement. So the police raided, they found all these people, they released the hostages, and then they waited for the brothers to get back. And the brothers were apparently not these people, but instead they were opening up their wrists and drinking the liquid that ran through their veins. And they were keeping them alive so that they could feed off of them. And when the police raided and finally caught them, the brothers admitted it. They said, yes, we're vampires. Please execute us. If you don't execute us, we will continue doing this. And so the police obliged. They put them on trial. They were convicted and sentenced to death. Well, a few years later, apparently their tomb was opened up and both of their bodies were missing. Now, this story is not verifiable, okay? This is just like an urban legend, but this is what these girls are talking about right before Alex blacks out. Said the last thing he can remember is Cassie laughing open mouth, like right next to him on the bed. And then that was it. He wakes up the next morning. He's back in his hotel room. He's fully clothed. He has his wallet. Everything is as it should be. He's alone, except for now he has a horrible hangover. Dry mouth, sore body, all of the signs of just partying way too hard. And he was like, oh my gosh, I don't know what I did last night. I am so embarrassed. I hope nobody from my job finds out. Looks at his phone. He did not have Cassie's number, but he did have Marla's number. Marla had not texted him. And he was like, I hope I didn't do something embarrassing. Had body aches all over, but he was like, I just felt like the most hungover that I remember feeling. So I just turned over and I went back to bed and I didn't really think of it. Woke up later that afternoon. He said he walked out, got some food, and then pretty much just spent the rest of that night in his hotel room because he had a flight out the next day, but he didn't do anything fun. He thought about texting Marla to check in on them, but thought, again, he may have done something embarrassing and he wanted to wait to see if they would text him, but they didn't. So he catches his flight. Okay, he goes back to the city where he lives. Gets back and he's still completely exhausted and completely sore. And he notices on the inside of his elbow, he has 3 little marks that look like bug bites. And he's like checking his luggage because he's like, did the hotel have bed bugs? He doesn't find anything, and he said he checked the rest of his body and he didn't have any other bites, so he just figured a bug must have bit him while he was out partying, or he must have scratched himself. Doesn't think much of it, right? Goes to sleep that night and he has a dream about Cassie, and she's standing at the foot of his bed and she's in the same clothes that she was wearing at South by Southwest when he met her, a black tank top and cut off jean shorts. He said the dream felt so real. She was standing at the end of the bed and she was smiling at me. He said in the dream, she got on the bed and she started crawling toward him, and he jumped up because it was like creepy the way that she was looking at him. He said he was like in a cold sweat, but he thought it was still just the hangover and the body exhaustion from working and partying all week. These dreams continue, and he's having this dream about Cassie standing at the foot of his bed like once or twice a week for the next few weeks. But he still does not hear from these girls. He thought about reaching out a few times, but decided ultimately if they wanted to talk to him, they would have reached out. About a month after he gets back, he goes to a work happy hour again, and his boss's wife is there again, and she runs into him and she's like, oh, how was South by Southwest? You know, did you have a good time at your first festival? And he had always liked his boss's wife. He said she was very approachable and very nice. And he was like, yeah, I had a great time. And he was kind of gauging to see if she had heard anything about his drunken night with her niece. So he's like, also, I met your niece the last night I was in town, and we had a really good time together. They were really nice girls. His boss's wife looks at him strangely and she's like, they didn't go. He was like, oh yeah, no, they told me they weren't going to go, but then I actually did end up running into them. And she's like, no, they went to Europe, or at least my niece went to Europe. Her sister lives there. She's a foreign exchange student, and their parents decided to surprise them last minute and they bought flights. And so that's why she wasn't at South by Southwest. Like, she wasn't in Austin. Alex was like, are you sure? Because I'm pretty sure I met them the last night in town. And she's like, no, like, that's my sister's daughter. Like, I know that they were in Europe. Alex is like, okay, weird. So he doesn't say anything else about it to the boss's wife because he doesn't want to be weird. But then that night he gets home and he texts Marla. And he was like, hey, Marla, you know, I just wanted to check in on you guys. Are you guys feeling normal again after the festival? And after getting home, are you settled back into your routine? How's Cassie? She texts him back pretty much immediately, and she just sends him a question mark. He goes, who is this? He's like, it's Alex, who you guys hung out with at South by Southwest, like your aunt's husband's employee that works for so-and-so. And she was like, I think you have the wrong number. I didn't go to South by Southwest. Like, I remember texting you, but I told you we weren't going. I was in Europe. He said, I genuinely did not know what to think at that moment. I just stopped texting her because I didn't want to like freak her out or freak myself out anymore. But I did find her social media account. I looked at it. She had posted photos in Europe visiting her sister at the time that I was supposedly with her. It bothered him. So the next night he goes out and he said he got wildly drunk again. And he said, I know that that's probably not a healthy way to cope or deal with it, but I was just trying to figure this out. So I went out with my friends. I was talking to them about it. Nobody could find a reasonable explanation for what happened or who these two girls were that I met. And his friend's like, well, why don't you take me back to that night? Tell me everything that happened, like from the beginning to what you remember. And that's when Alex says that he remembered something that he hadn't remembered upon initially waking up. He's in a bathtub with what seemed to be an IV bag, the tube that was hooked into his arm. And he remembers Cassie brushing the hair away from his forehead and saying, shh, it won't hurt. It'll be over soon. You're not going to remember this. He tells his friend this. His friend's like, I don't know. That sounds like you could just be trying to connect the dots between what they were telling you about that vampire legend right before you blacked out. But Alex is like, where did that memory come from? And they end up looking up where nurses would draw blood from. And it's consistent with where the marks were on his arm. The scariest thing about all of this is he's not sure if that's something that actually happened to him or if it's just his mind filling in the blanks. But the dreams of Cassie haven't stopped. He said he's sharing this in an attempt to warn people to be careful who you party with, who you go home with, even if you're a man. Ultimately said that he's still bothered by the idea that he can't figure out how these two people that he met were supposedly the people that he was supposed to be meeting, but weren't them at all. If you have any theories, let him know. Luckily, he's fine and nothing worse happened, but Alex's name has been changed, but he will be seeing the comments. Let him know if you have thoughts, and if you have a spooky, scary story time that you think no one would believe or that makes you feel crazy, send it in. We'd love to hear it.
Do you think you're safe because you're in a church? Think again. Always, I would be changing people's names for privacy reasons. A little girl, Elisa, has always questioned her reality. She questioned spirituality. She questioned the Bible. She questioned most religions, but especially the church she went to as a kid. She questioned the people there. And she was a very vocal child. She used to tell her parents everything, especially when she used to see things within the church. Before you guys come for me in the comments, just know there's a reason why this person wants to stay private, so keep that in mind. Lisa states that she used to see people's attachments as well as their auras. Now, as a child, she didn't know what that was or how to explain it to her parents what she was seeing. Like, for example, she said that she would see a woman in the church, you know, praising and dancing and worshiping, and she would see the woman's aura as well as something evil attached to her at the same time. She couldn't explain it into words to her parents what she was seeing, but she would stay away from certain people, especially people that wanted to become friends with her mom. His parents thought for a very long time that Elisa was just rebelling. She was making up stories. She was just watching things that she wasn't supposed to be watching when they weren't around. This is all the things that they thought that this is why she was acting the way she was with certain people in the church. Until Elisa's mom started paying more close attention to what her daughter was warning her about certain people trying to be friends with her. So she's never seen a demonic entity not being attached to someone. So she associated it as a child that these demons needed people or hosts to basically feed their energy off of them. She never thought that they just freely wandered. For some weird reason, she never thought that. That was until one day she left the church with her mom. And as her mom is talking to a friend outside, she turned over and looked through the window. And that's when she saw him back at her from within the church, as if she was food or prey, smiling with razor sharp teeth that look like knives. She says that he was about her height, and all her hairs on her skin stood up, and she could hear in her head how he wanted to attach himself to her. She completely freaked out, turned around and ran to her mom and told her what she saw. Her mom, embarrassed, and this is a taboo topic for a child to even be screaming about while everyone's leaving the church, that she's seeing demons within the church. Her mom covered her mouth and rushed her into the just started crying and crying and crying and crying and saying, Mom, he wants to attach himself to me. Mom, he wants to attach himself to me. And of course, Elisa's mom, at that point in time, she somewhat believed her, but not fully. So in the midst of her anxiety and frustration with Elisa, she yelled at her and said, you need to stop. You need to stop this. This is ridiculous. What are you doing? You're embarrassing me in front of people. I don't want people to know these kinds of things. And Elisa just continued to cry because she felt helpless, because her mom did believe her, but didn't believe her all at the same time. And she didn't know what to do about whatever that thing was in the window trying to attach itself to her through the window. And in her mind, she couldn't add basically 2 + 2. How can he be walking around freely without an attachment, which is another person or a host? She thought that maybe this was like the book The Host, where these aliens come into your brain and they attach themselves to your brain. That's how she associated these demons. Now, to me, honestly, that's a pretty cool association. I don't know if you guys ever read that book. I'm not getting paid for promoting that book, but that's a cool association, by the way. Took a deep breath, drove off, and before getting home, she turned over and looked at Elisa and asked Elisa, "What did you see? Just tell me what you saw." And she said that she looked through the window of the church. She saw a man about the same height as her, with razor sharp teeth, pale skin, and he was smiling at her. And he wasn't speaking, but she could hear him talk to her through her thoughts, which was taboo to her because she was taught that demons can't read your thoughts. But with this entity or demon or whatever, he could speak to her through her thoughts. So she questioned all her belief systems right then and there even more, because not only is she seeing auras, attachments, now there's a demon telepathically talking to her. It completely freaked her out. And that's what she told her mom. So her mom looked at her and said to her, "Elisa, you can't tell this to your dad. We need to figure this out. You seeing things. I don't know if I should take you to a doctor. I don't know what I should do, because half the time you're telling me the truth and whatever you say does come to pass. And I realize that the person's a bad person that tries to become our friend with the family. But other times I feel like your imagination is just running wild." And Elisa didn't know what to say to her mom, within tears falling down her face and her trying to make sense of it all. And Elisa's mom trying to make sense of it all. She turned over and asked Elisa, "Do you want me to pray?" And Elisa said, "Well, that's the only thing we have is to pray, Mom. You said that our prayers are always answered, so let's pray." And of course, Elisa's never really heard her mom pray so devotedly. Elisa's mom prayed a prayer of protection over Elisa's life. And as she was doing the prayer for protection, her mom says, "Remain with your eyes closed as I'm praying for you." And of course, like any child would, Elisa opened her eyes mid-prayer. And when she looked out the window of the car, there she saw the demon smiling back at her. And she closed her eyes again. And she said, Mom, I opened up my eyes. And she told her, "Keep your eyes closed. It cannot come into this car. I'm praying. It cannot come into this car." Let's just say that that was the last time Elisa saw that particular entity trying to attach itself to her. But she was freaked out. So much so. But now, present day, Elisa says that she is a believer. However, she also does believe that people have gifts that have been given to them to see the unknown, to protect others. So, what do you guys think that was? What gifts do you think Elisa has? And the host, I'll attach that book at the bottom of this video. They were talking about in the story that I just shared is this book right here on the screen. It's a very good read. I read it a couple years ago, and I believe there's a movie or a series on this book.
Hello and welcome back to a series of spooky stories, The Haunted Tea Spill. The series is brought to you by all things spooky and ungodly amounts of paranormal activity. I actually haven't taken this off for like the last 4 days at all. Also, don't forget to follow my backup account. It's down here. Now onto the story. This is something that happened to me the summer before I got married, so around July of 2023. I'd moved out of my mother's house to live with my fiance back before COVID, but she wanted to go on vacation and no one else could watch her dogs. It wasn't the house that I grew up in, but I'd lived there for college after she married my stepfather, so it wasn't like I'd never been there before. It was a nice house, but the original footprint was very old. The master bedroom where I had to sleep since the dog couldn't go up or downstairs was part of that original footprint. I stayed for a week while my mother was on vacation and everything was fine. The dogs were fine, the house was fine. The last night, though, something changed. I hesitate to even submit this story because I'm no longer positive it's paranormal, but here's how it happened. What do you mean? What do you mean? I took the dogs to bed with me and watched TV till around 10 p.m. I'd started a new medication that made me sleepy, so I fell asleep pretty quickly after that. I woke up sometime later, but didn't know what woke me. Another thing about the master bedroom is that it had a door that led to the outside. Ew! I don't fucking like that. There was a storm door that locked and an outside door that didn't. I'd locked the storm door and called it good enough. Never good enough. I need deadbolts and a fucking safe lock on that hoe. When I rolled over to check the time, I got this horrible sense that something was wrong. Something made me look over at that door. Someone was standing between the locked storm door and the unlocked outside door. Which, if it's not paranormal, honestly, that's even fucking scarier. It had enough presence that the outside door was propped open on its back. Or it looked like a someone. Its entire silhouette was black and almost smoky looking, and I couldn't tell if it was wearing any clothes. I stared at it for a minute and felt like I couldn't breathe. Staring at it for a minute is a minute too motherfucking long. Close your eyes. One of the dogs was growling at it. I don't know how long I stared at it. It felt like it stared at me too, but I couldn't see its eye. Instead of calling the cops or anyone else to help me, I pulled the blanket over my head and I think I passed out. Why are we like this? Why are we like this? I woke up in the morning, did what I needed to do for the dogs, and then left. I hesitate to say that this story is for sure paranormal because it could have been a side effect of the medication. It could have been sleep paralysis. It could have also been a person who knew my mother was away and was trying to get inside. All of those options are scary though. Like sleep paralysis, scary as fuck. Someone trying to break in the fucking house because they know that your mom is away, scary as fuck. A side effect of your medication, spooky. Because you're hallucinating. This is a series of spooky stories, friends. So this fits in. Perfect. Also, I mean, if it was a side effect and you were hallucinating, maybe you also hallucinated that the dog was growling. But I have a feeling that it probably wasn't your medication. Because if the dog was also growling, they're seeing something. You know what I mean? I digress. Either way, it was very scary to me. I regret not calling the cops, but I was processing it for a while and I'm afraid of being called crazy. Fuck all of these people. Fuck everyone who make these people think that they can't call the people that are supposed to serve and protect them because they're going to be called crazy. Fuck all of y'all for that. Do it anyway. Call them, let them call you fucking crazy. It's documented, and then if some bullshit happens, at least it's on record. You know what I mean? Anyway, sorry, I got a little bit heated. Rated on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being the least scary, creepy, spooky, 10 being the most. If you have a story of your own that you want to submit, you can do so on the link tree in my profile. I'll see y'all the next episode. Stay spooky, friends.
This right here is the exact reason why you should always have cameras even inside your house. Because when you're sleeping, then you'll never know what's happening around you. It all started with this footage right here where you can see a woman sleeping peacefully in a living room. Now, I want you to focus on the other side because this is where things happen. You see, not even a second later, you can see a door being opened, but that's not it. After that, the door was opened, the light in that room started flickering. Well, not even flickering. They were literally being turned on and turned off, like somebody was messing with them. Alright, bro, that literally could be somebody behind that room messing with the lights. You're not fooling us with this one. Alright, cool. I want you to forget all of this and focus on this right here, this statue right here. Because if you come back to the start of the footage, you can see that this statue right here of a giraffe or whatever was moving even by a little bit. It was moving. But things became obvious when this thing moved from this to this. Oh my god, sister, get the hell out. As you can see right here, when this thing moved by itself, the woman woke up and she was so freaked out that she started calling her partner. Her partner came and saw her freaking out. She tried to calm her down by saying, "It's okay, everything's okay, it was all a bad dream. You're okay now." So this is where the woman who witnessed all of this was like, "Oh my god, it's not okay, I saw that thing moving in front of me." That thing. The big ass giraffe. Oh yeah, you are not okay.
Honey? Yeah. And that was what Sorry. Yeah, we gotta watch that. We gotta check the camera. Holy shit. What just happened? Yo. Check. Where's the cat? That's Marilyn. Yeah. Hi, bud. Okay. Okay. Yeah, I knew. Like, why is it? I don't know. We need to figure it out. I can't wait to go to that. Okay, let's play. How did that move? Did you see anything out there? Are you fucking with me? No, I'm not fucking with you. Are you kidding me? You're wrong. I don't even want to be here. Okay, let's play that. Alright, let's get up here now. Yeah,
Why did you stop? Now keep going, keep moving.
The girl across the road. Alice told me this story about 10 years ago, and it stayed with me so much that I still bring it up at dinner parties whenever people start sharing strange or unexplained experiences. One winter morning, when Alice was about 17 years old, she woke up early for work. It was around 5 a.m., still dark outside. At the time, she worked in the bakery at Safeway, which many people will remember as a chain of supermarkets back in the 90s.
Safeway.
Yeah, which is now Morrison's.
Is it?
Yeah. She left the house and began walking down the street, following the same route she always took to work. As she walked along, she noticed something across the road. There was a woman, dressed in black, standing there. At first, Alice thought nothing of it. But as she looked again, something about the woman made her slow down. The woman looked strangely familiar. Alice stared for a moment longer. The woman looked exactly like her. The same face, the same eyes, the same features. The only difference was that she looked about 20 years older. Then the woman looked directly at her. Alice looked back. She says that in that moment, something very strange happened. It felt as if the entire world paused. The birds weren't chirping. The clouds didn't seem to move. The air felt heavy and still, as though everything around them had frozen for a moment. The woman simply stood there, staring at her from across the street. Eventually the moment passed. Alice shook the feeling off and continued walking to work, unsettled but trying to convince herself it was nothing. When she got to work, she told people about it. She told her family too, but no one believed her. Everyone said the same thing. It was probably just someone who happened to look like her. Over time, Alice accepted that explanation and eventually forgot about the whole thing, until many years later. Years passed, and eventually Alice's mother sadly died.
Oh.
She returned to her childhood home to deal with everything that comes after a loss like that. In her culture, when someone close dies, it's customary to wear black for 40 days as a sign of mourning. Grieving and overwhelmed, Alice decided to go for a walk to clear her head. Without really thinking about it, she followed the same route she used to take when she walked to work as a teenager. As she walked down the street, something caught her eye in the reflection of a shop window. Across the road was a girl. But something about the girl seemed strangely out of place. She was wearing a Safeway uniform, which was odd because Safeway had closed down around 15 years earlier. She was also dressed exactly like someone from the 90s, wearing kickers. Then her stomach dropped. The girl looked identical to her. Not just similar, identical, except a teenage version. The same face, the same hair, the same expression. Alice noticed on the girl's cheek was a mole Alice used to have when she was younger, the one she had removed 10 years ago. The girl was staring directly at her. And suddenly Alice remembered. When she was 17, walking to work one winter morning, she'd seen a woman across the street. A woman dressed entirely in black. A woman who looked just like her, only older. Now she realized something that made her feel uneasy. She was the older version. And across the road was her younger self. Alice says that in that moment, the exact same thing happened as before. Everything seemed to freeze. The world went silent. The air felt heavy and still. They stared at each other across the road, just like before. After what felt like a long minute, Alice looked away. When she looked back again, the girl was gone. What she realized was, years ago, she had seen her current self, and now she'd seen her younger self. To this day, Alice has never been able to explain what happened. Perhaps a moment where time folded in on itself, or perhaps, as she often thinks about now, it was somehow a glimpse into a parallel universe.
Wow. Let's read a story that was submitted to me about a first-hand encounter with a mimic. If you're new here, I'm Krista, and on my account I tell spooky stories that I either find on the internet or that are submitted to me. When I was 16, my family lived in a pretty remote part of New Mexico. Our house sat at the end of a dirt road with nothing around us but desert and scrubland for miles. At night, it was completely silent out there. No cars, no streetlights, just the wind and the occasional coyote. One night around 2 a.m., I woke up to the sound of someone walking around outside the house. At first, I thought it was my dad. He worked weird hours sometimes, and it wasn't unusual for him to step outside late at night. But then I realized something. The footsteps weren't moving away from the house. They were circling it, slowly, back and forth along the side of my bedroom wall. Crunch, 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 like someone walking through gravel. I sat up and listened for a minute, expecting to hear the back door open or close. But it never did. Finally, I got up and looked out my window. Our light yard was on, so I could see most of the yard pretty clearly, but there was nobody there. The footsteps stopped almost immediately after I looked outside. I figured I must have imagined it, so I went back to bed. About 10 minutes later, I heard something again. This time, it wasn't footsteps. It was my dad's voice, right outside of my window. He said my name, just quietly. "Hey, come here for a second." At first, I didn't respond because something about the whole thing felt really wrong. My dad never talked like that, and he definitely wouldn't be whispering through my window in the middle of the night. Then it said my name again, exactly the same way. "Hey, come outside." I felt this weird cold feeling run through me, because the voice sounded like my dad, but it also didn't. It was slightly off, like someone was trying to copy the way he spoke. I slowly got out of bed and cracked my door open to check the hallway. My parents' bedroom door was open, and I could hear my dad snoring inside. He had been asleep the entire time. That's when I heard something else, right outside of my window again. This time, the voice sounded irritated. It said my name one more time, but the way it said it was different, more strained, like it was forcing the words out. I walked back over to the window and slowly lifted the corner of the curtain just enough to see outside. That's when I saw it, standing under the edge of the yard, under the light. It was shaped like a person, but its arms were way too long. Its posture was wrong too, like it didn't understand how a human body was supposed to stand. Its head tilted slightly when it saw me looking at it. Then it tried to speak again. But this time it couldn't get the words out properly. The voice came out warped, like multiple voices layered together. I dropped the curtain immediately and ran back to my bed. I didn't sleep at all the rest of the night. The next morning, I told my dad about it. He didn't laugh like I expected him to. Instead, he got really serious and asked me one question. "Did it try to get you to come outside?" When I said yes, he just nodded slowly and said something that still freaks me out to this day. He said, "If something ever calls your name from outside at night and you know everyone in the house is inside, don't answer it." We moved about 6 months later. But sometimes when I'm lying awake at night, I still think about how it knew my dad's voice. And I still wonder what would have happened if I had listened. Hell no. Absolutely not. I think I read a similar story a couple weeks ago, and I think it was also in New Mexico. What is going on in New Mexico? Are y'all okay? Literally so terrifying. If you guys have any stories you'd like me to read, please email them to me and I will get to them if I can. I will see you in the next one.
It is time for another spooky story. I am Autumn in Appalachia. Send me your spooky stories. Add me on Facebook, subscribe on YouTube, same handle. Without further ado, you guys also stick around to the end of the video. There is something I want to ask super quick. This story is insane, so you guys buckle up. Also a trigger warning for sensitive content. Skip this video if this is a trigger for you. Laura said that there is one particular thing she went through when she was 9 years old that has always stuck with her. Now, when she was 9, it was 2007. That, unfortunately, is the year that her mom passed away. Her mom passed away from self-unaliving. Laura said that her mom had always struggled with her mental health and unfortunately did not win her battle. Around funeral time, she and her family printed off a bunch of collages of pictures to hang up at the funeral. There was one particular picture that Laura found amongst her mother's belongings that stuck out to her. She said that in this picture, her mom was around 10 or 11 years old, and the resemblance that Laura had to her mom in this picture was uncanny. They already looked alike, but it was just kind of insane how much they looked alike in this particular photo. Now, after the funeral, Laura said that she and her dad tried their best to resume life as normal as it could be after losing your mom. They had a vacation home in Maryland, and during the summer, they would stay there for longer periods of time. During the winter, they would just stay on weekends. I misspoke in the last clip and said that it was a home they stayed in. It wasn't. In fact, it was like a vacation trailer that they would park on this 800-acre park in Maryland. I'll include some map reference pictures here that Laura sent to me. But she and her dad, this one particular morning in December, are staying there, and she wakes up around 6 a.m. because she has to go to the bathroom. Now, during the winter months, they turn the water off because they keep a bathhouse for anybody who's staying in the park. So when she wakes up, having to use the bathroom, she has to walk to the bathhouse. So she lets her dad know. He says it's okay. She gets her flashlight and she begins her walk over to the bathhouse. Now, as she's walking over, she notices it's still pretty dark outside, so her visibility is not the best. But she said that there's a huge field beside the bathhouse and that suddenly a light kind of catches the corner of her eye, like from a flashlight, and it's coming from this field area. So she looks over, and to her surprise, she sees two people walking through this field. And it seems like they're conversing amongst themselves. She should, in theory, be close enough to at least make out some mumbling, something. She can't hear any voices, but they're facing away from her. And so she said it struck her as odd because people usually are not up at that hour, much less walking through a big empty field. But she shines her flashlight over to kind of illuminate so she could see a little better. They still don't acknowledge her. And so at this point she says hello. And as soon as she says hello, both figures whip around to face her. And she said that the one person she didn't recognize at all, but that the other person standing there was so clearly her mom. It was her mom from that picture at the funeral. The exact same hairdo, the exact same clothes, same age. She was around 10 or 11. It was uncanny. She said the only difference this time was that there was a wound on her head. Laura is so terrified and confused by what she's seeing. Bathroom is out of the question at this point. She turns around and runs as fast as she can back to the trailer, wakes her dad up, and tells him what she just saw. He chalks it up to her just being a kid with a wild imagination. Nothing more. And this confused and hurt her, honestly. It affected her deeply because Laura said she knows what she saw. She was not dreaming. She was not just a kid with a wild imagination. She saw her mom and somebody else standing in that field. Now, for months after this, she cannot get this vivid image out of her head, and anybody she tries to share the experience with, same thing her dad does. They chalk it up to her being a kid with a wild imagination. Everyone except one person. So months after this incident, her mom's best friend comes to her one day and says, "Laura, I had a dream about your mom last night, and your mom had a message for you." She went on to explain that when her mom came to her in this dream, she said, "Tell Laura, when she's no longer scared, I will appear to her again." And then she further explained that she didn't want to scare and didn't mean to scare any of her children. Laura said that single thing was the one thing that validated this life-altering experience for her. Now, it's been years. Laura is an adult now, and she still has not seen an apparition of her mother like that again. She still doesn't quite know what to make of it. She does believe it was her mother, though, and she said that in the house that she's in now, she does have some activities, some experiences. She doesn't quite know if it is her mom or another family member, but that is one experience that she'll never forget. And man, y'all, gave me full body chills. It's sad, but it is so compelling, man. That is wild. We've shared stories from beyond the grave here on this channel before. You guys let me know what you think in the comments. Send me your spooky stories. Super quick before I jump off, I wanted to share something really important with you guys. So a member of our family here on TikTok, her name is Stephanie. She has been in a very serious car accident. She has been injured very seriously in the accident. She is such a sweet soul. She is a mother. She, when she reached out to me, shared she had already been struggling financially. And then when she got in the wreck, it's amplified that times 1,000, as I'm sure you can imagine. We all know what kind of insurance and healthcare crisis we have here in the States anyway. She is currently in the hospital or a rehabilitation facility trying to recover. She has to go undergo surgeries, and she's having a really hard time getting insurance to cover the medical equipment she's going to need when she is able to return home to her child. She has living expenses and medical bills and just so much on her plate right now. I can personally relate to that, and I know how overwhelming it is. I asked if she had a GoFundMe. She did, and she shared that with me. I have posted the link to that at the on my Facebook page. I'll pin it to the top of my profile. I'll also here in this video include a screen cap of the QR code. You can screenshot that and pull up her GoFundMe via QR code. You can go to my Facebook and pull it up. I'll also tag Stephanie in this video, and you can reach out to her directly via DM if you want to get the GoFundMe link that way. No amount is too small, guys, especially when you are going through a crisis like this. If there is anything you can do for Stephanie and her family, please do. Even share, Thank you guys so much for all of the love, for the support. I am so grateful for the family that we have here, and I'll catch y'all in the next video.
I've got a story for you that isn't as much creepy as it is heartwarming, but paranormal nonetheless. A woman named Ella says that her mother passed away from cancer about 3 years ago. Her parents lived in Germany and she lived in Canada, so their time zone was 9 hours ahead of hers. She said when her sister-in-law called her to tell her that the time had come where they were going to remove her mother from life support and stop medications, it was early in the morning for them and bedtime for her. She said they knew that she was going to pass sometime within the next day. So Ella hangs up the phone and she cries herself to sleep. She just wishes that there was some way that she could say goodbye to her mother one last time. So fast forward to about 2 o'clock in the morning, and Ella wakes up randomly and she notices her husband isn't in bed. So she goes downstairs to find him, and he's sitting there on the couch. He's just sitting there staring into the kitchen, and his face is as white as a sheet. And she makes note that he does not spook very easily. He told her that he woke up to the sound of something in the kitchen. So he went downstairs, but nothing was there. So he decided to sit on the couch and just sort of watch. And from the couch, he had a clear view of the kitchen. So now they're both sitting there watching. And after a few minutes, the K-cup machine turns on by itself and starts making the sound as though it's going to start brewing coffee. So she goes over and she grabs a coffee mug and she quickly puts it under the spout. She says she didn't touch a single button, but all of a sudden, coffee started pouring out of this spout. Guys, it was fresh, bold coffee. And she said there was no pod in that K-cup machine. So she's just so confused, but she goes back into the living room and she sits down on the couch next to her husband, and they continue just to stare blankly out into the kitchen. And guess what? Just then, her sister-in-law calls telling her that her mother has just passed away. Ella says she and her husband just know that her mom came back to visit them and make them one last cup of coffee. She also notes that her mother had always wanted to get them a K-cup machine, but because of environmental factors, they had refused it for a while. But much to her amusement, they ended up getting one anyway. And she said specifically, every time her mother would visit them, she would always make them a cup of coffee on that K-cup machine. How sweet and comforting was that story? Also crazy that it was able to produce fresh coffee out of a machine that had no pod. That just takes it to a whole other level. Let me know your thoughts. And if you have a similar story or any kind of a paranormal story, I would love to hear it. And if you're new here, you gotta follow for more creepy story time.
What would happen if you followed a mimic? Now, I've always wondered this, because you hear these stories of someone hearing like their mother knocking at the door or telling them to come in the kitchen. But what would happen if you actually listened to the mimic? Here's a story that might tell you why you should not follow a mimic. There was this young man named Aiden. Now, Aiden lived with his grandfather and his two parents. Now, one day, Aiden was hanging out in his bedroom and he's playing a game. Well, he hears his parents pull in and he looks out the window and sees them getting out of the car, unloading some groceries into the house. So he's like, awesome, man, we're going to have something to eat. So he goes back to his game, and then he hears his mother say, Aiden, come in the kitchen. I got some food. And he, at this time was like in the middle of a battle. So he's like, hold on, Mom, I'll be there shortly. I'm in the middle of a battle. And she goes, come on, Aiden, hurry up. Come in the kitchen. And all of a sudden, he said he got a phone call, and it was from his mom. And he's like, why is she calling me when she's in the kitchen? So he picks it up, and his mom's like, hey, honey, we're at the grocery store. Do you want us to get you anything? And he goes, what do you mean? You're at the grocery store. You already got groceries. You're in the kitchen. She goes, what are you talking about? We just got to the grocery store. And he looks out the window and sees that their car is not there. And then right at this moment, he hears his mom saying, you better get in the kitchen right now or you're going to be in trouble. You better come eat. And he's like, I got to call you back, Mom. He hangs up. So he goes and he locks his door, and then he calls his mom right back and is like, look, when you get home, call me. I'll help you bring in the groceries. So about 25, 30 minutes later, his mom calls him. And she's like, honey, we're home. Come outside. And he said he was getting ready to go out of his room, but he looked out his window first, and their car wasn't there. So he's like, you know what? I don't know what to do because I don't know, who really is my mom right now. So as he's sitting in his bedroom, right, he hears his parents come home and come into the house. And all of a sudden, his mom comes up to his door and starts knocking. And she goes, Aiden, let me in. And he's like, not right now, Mom. And she goes, what are you talking about? Let me in. Unlock this door. Why do you have the door locked? And he's like, no, I'm not opening the door. And his mom goes, all right, I'll just get the key and unlock it. So he grabs this baseball bat that's chilling in his room, and he's prepared for this thing to come in. And at the time, he still thinks whatever, was calling his name in the kitchen, this is them. So he sees the handle jiggle and the door open, and it's really his mom. And he can tell that it is actually his real mom. And she goes, what are you doing? And he's like, oh, nothing. And he sets the bat down, and she's like, you're acting weird and stuff. And there's food in the fridge if you're hungry. So he didn't know what to make of that. What did he just experience? And he didn't feel like he could tell his parents about it. So he decided to talk to his grandpa, who was kind of like his best friend at the time. So he goes to his grandpa's room, and he's like, Grandpa, he's like, have you ever seen something you can't explain? And he goes, what do you mean? And he tells the story about how he thought his mom and dad had came home, he seen their car and everything, but it wasn't actually them. And the grandpa goes, oh no. And he goes, what's wrong, Grandpa? And he says, well, when I was a young boy, I grew up in a small Polish village near Warsaw. And he said, we had this term that was this long Polish word, but it roughly translated into evil twin. And he said they believed there were these evil spirits that could take the form of anyone and would try and trick you and lure you, out into the woods. So his grandpa said, when I was a young boy, my father had me chopping wood outside. And I hear my grandma's voice coming from the forest. And she's saying, come in the woods. I baked you a pie. Come out here. It's nice and warm. You'll like this pie. And he said, he was so hungry, he almost started to go out into the woods until his father ran and grabbed him and said, get back in the house. And his father locked the door and said, if you hear someone calling you from the woods, don't ever go. Don't respond. So he said, when you encounter an evil twin, as they called it, they will follow you for the rest of your life. And he feared that maybe this thing had followed him here to America. And this is what Aiden had seen. A couple weeks later, his parents are gone, and it's just him and his grandpa. And they're watching this World War II documentary in the living room. Well, all of a sudden, the wind picked up, and a strong breeze pushes the back kitchen door open, and they hear it, open up. So his grandpa's like, I'll go and close the door real quick, and I better lock it so it doesn't blow open again. So his grandpa goes into the kitchen, but after about 10, 15 minutes, he doesn't come back. So Aiden's like, Grandpa, are you all right? He goes into the kitchen, the back door's still open, and he doesn't see his grandpa. He goes throughout the house, he's yelling his name, he doesn't see him anywhere. So he goes out, to the back door, and he's yelling his grandpa's name, he doesn't hear it. So he calls up his parents, and his parents come home immediately, and like they call the police, and they do this big search throughout the neighborhood and into the woods. And they end up finding his grandfather in the middle of the woods. He is confused and like doesn't know who he is, doesn't know anything, doesn't remember anything. So they bring him back home and everything. Well, Aiden said that, they chalked this up to dementia and said he was diagnosed with like a severe case of dementia. But Aiden, in his mind, suspected, because of the series of events that happened before this and his grandfather going out to the kitchen when the door opened, that this was the evil twin thing that his grandfather had talked about. And he said, although his grandfather had completely lost his memory, from time to time, he would say to Aiden, "Is my brother outside? Is my brother out there?" And he couldn't figure out why, like, his grandfather would keep saying that. And then he realized maybe this thing appeared as his brother, and it lured him, like, into the woods.
In California, there is a small population of wild chimpanzees that live in the woods. Now, the story goes that back in the 60s, there was this animal sanctuary. And when they shut their doors, they released 60 to 70 of these chimps out into the wild in Northern California. And to this day, it's believed that there is a small population living up near Willow Creek on the Klamath River. There was a story of two hunters who rented this cabin for the weekend to do some hunting up on the Klamath River. The story goes, the first night they get there, one of the hunters decides he's going to go out and sit on this tree stand and look for mule deer. The other hunter stayed in the cabin and started to cook some food over the fire. As he's cooking his food, he begins to hear what sounds like his friend saying these words. And so he goes to the front door of the cabin and he opens up and he yells his friend's name. But all he hears is sort of these broken words like, "Come out, out here, out here, out here." And so he goes away from the cabin towards the wood line and he starts yelling his friend's name again and again. So that's when he began to hear movement up in the top of the trees. And as he looks up, he sees 30 to 40 of these large chimpanzees staring at him. So he runs back inside the cabin, he closes the door. After about 30 minutes, he begins to hear banging on the front door. And when he opens it, he sees his friend who's all disheveled and bruised and bloody. And his friend comes in and he tells him that when he was up in the tree stand, he began to see movement on the treetops. And he said he was attacked by these large monkey-like creatures. And he said he managed to escape, get back to the cabin. Well, right at that moment, they began to hear howls and screams outside all around them. And throughout the night, these things tried to get in. They would pelt the house with rocks and sticks. And eventually morning came and they decided to make a run and get out of there and get to their truck. As they're hiking back and they're walking down this trail, he said they seen a mule deer next to this tree. But the next thing they knew, all of the treetops above them started to move and shake. And out of the trees jumped these ape-like creatures onto this mule deer, and they ripped this thing apart. And they just took off as these chimpanzees were distracted, and they run back to their vehicle and they get out of there. But there are many hunters, hikers, and outdoorsmen who believe that there is a population of wild chimps in Northern California.
Something is going on. Like, I don't know, but I think that we shifted into another dimension. Now, listen to this. So I was looking at a world map today, and
I'm like, wait a second, like all these countries are completely in a different place. Like, look at where South America is. South America has always been under North America, and now it's in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. Look at New Zealand. Look at some of these other islands and where they are. You can't tell me that this map wasn't different 5 years ago. Okay, so I started going down the rabbit hole, and I looked at Home Depot, right? I go there all the time. I was there a couple weeks ago, except it's not called Home Depot. It's called the Home Depot. Yeah, there's a the in front of the Home Depot. King Tut, right? We all learned about him in school, and we've seen that famous mask, right? That's solid gold that he wears. What's on the top of it? A giant cobra. Nope, there isn't one. Okay, there is a cobra, but it's to the right, and there's also another vulture on the other side. It's completely different. Think about Scary Movie 2. My favorite line to say is, take my strong hand. Except, he never says that. Now he says, take my hand. If you don't believe me, look it up for yourself. Like, something is going on. We've shifted into another dimension. There was this man named Jimmy, and Jimmy said that when he was a young boy, he grew up outside of Roanoke, Virginia, in this, two-story, 1950s style home. And he said their backyard was up against, like, the woods. And he said you would see, like, a lot of wildlife and different things that would come out of the woods and stuff, but it really wasn't that bad, living out in the middle of nowhere. He said one night he happened to be, like, in his backyard, and he's sitting on the porch, and he said as he was sitting there, he heard, like, a knocking sound, like, and he's like, what is that sound? And he said it was coming from within the woods. And he said he heard it again, and he couldn't figure out what it was. So he went inside and was kind of like, hey, Dad, there's like a knocking sound coming from out there. And his dad said, oh, it's probably, a deer. And it's probably them, hitting their horns or their antlers against the tree. And so he didn't really think much of it. The next morning, he said that he went outside into the backyard again to go out and get the stuff that he had on the porch. And he found this very large clump of hair. And so he ran to his dad. He's like, Dad, look, there's like all this hair in the back. And his dad looked at it, and his dad was kind of like, is this human hair? Or is this some kind of animal hair? Like, why is it's really weird that was in a clump on the back deck? So a couple weeks pass, and he said, he just got a bad feeling about those woods, like something was off. So he said the time was about 12:30 at night, and he didn't know why, but he got this feeling he should go in the backyard. So he said he got up out of his bed, and he goes to the back door, and he opens it up, and he goes and like just stands on the back deck. And as he's looking out into the woods, he said he's seen movement. And coming out of the woods, he said, was what looked like a man, but it was sort of on all fours, but turned backwards. And this thing was kind of crawling, like if it was, facing its back facing the ground. And he said this thing just sort of walked around his yard in a couple circles. And then he said it turned its head, and it looked at him and smiled. And he said right at that moment, something grabbed him on the back. It was his dad. And he's like, Dad, like, are you seeing this? Like, what is this? And his dad's like, what are you talking about? And he's like, that in the yard. And his dad looked, there was nothing out there. And he said, what are you doing out of bed? Like, it's late, it's 12:30 at night. Like, you need to be inside in bed. And he's like, but Dad, I've seen something out here. And he said his dad wouldn't believe him. So that night he goes to bed. Next morning, said he woke up, and his dad said, like, you need to get in here, Jimmy, right away. I need to talk to you. So he goes and he talks to his dad, and his dad's like, hey, did you leave a bunch of like animal carcasses on the back porch? And he's like, no. And he's like, you could be serious with me. Like, have you been doing like weird stuff out in the backyard? Is that why you were up last night? And he's like, no, Dad, I'm serious. Like, I'm telling you, it was that thing I seen in the yard. And his dad's like, you know what? This is messed up. Like, you cannot do this anymore. You're grounded. So a few more weeks after this, he said, once again, he got the urge to get up out of bed and go outside. And he goes in the backyard,
and he's standing on the porch. And he said all of a sudden, like, he sees this very tall man walk out of the woods. And he said, you know, it looked like, if you ever seen kind of those performers that wear stilts, you know, it had this very long pants and, you know, long sleeve shirt. And it was just walking like it was on stilts. And then he said it got down on all fours. It walked up to him and it started like whispering something in his ear. And then he said it crawled off back into the woods. So like once he kind of realized like what was going on, he ran back inside. He tells his dad, he's like, I'm scared, like there's something going on, like I'm seeing something in the backyard and I'm afraid it's going to take me. Well, he said for a couple weeks after that, like his dad actually believed him at this point in time. And he said his dad every night would be sitting outside with a firearm. And he said this one particular night he heard like boom, 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 like the sounds of shots going off. And he comes running to the backyard because he knew it was his dad. And he sees his dad just kind of like looking around, all scared. And his dad comes inside and was like, yeah, look, we're packing up. We're leaving the house. We're not going to live here anymore. And so he said they moved out the next day.
No matter how many times we asked if we could stop, it kept telling us no. Get ready with me while I tell you guys this ghost story. This story was sent into my email, and if you have any ghost stories, paranormal encounters, or scary stories that you want to share, you can send them to the email in my bio. This all happened in Guanajuato, a place already known for its rich folklore and its history. And after that night, I don't mess with rituals anymore. And to be honest, we thought we were just playing a game. This was all around 2:15 in the morning. And my cousins, Allie and Alexis, were hanging out at her house, bored and watching a movie. Everyone else was asleep downstairs. Now the house itself was already a little strange. It had 2 floors, but they weren't connected from the inside. If you wanted to go upstairs, you had to go outside, climb a staircase, and enter through a separate door. So technically where we were alone, completely cut off from the rest of the house and anyone else in it. At some point, my cousin got this idea. Oh no. It's always one with an idea, and the idea is never good, but everybody just goes along with it. We should try something. A game, she said. She didn't even fully explain what it was, just that we needed coins. Looking back now, I didn't know why we agreed with her so quickly. I think maybe we were just really bored or curious, but I also think maybe something wanted us to play that game. So we found ourselves grabbing 2 Mexican coins and going to the end of the hallway. Stop. I remember there was a window behind us, slightly open and letting in the night air. And across from us, there was the door that led outside, the only way down to the rest of the house. Now, why would you guys set yourselves up to be on the opposite end of the door to let you out? We sat on the floor at the end of the hallway in a small circle. And, just in case we got scared, we brought all of the pets with us. The dog, the cat, and 2 bunnies. Y'all are so wrong for that. Y'all are so wrong for dragging the animals into this. At the time, it almost felt funny, like we were just kids trying to scare ourselves, playing a game because we were bored and had nothing else to do. The instructions to the game were simple. Each coin had 2 sides, an eagle on one side and the value of the coin on the other. If both sides of the coin landed on the side of the value, it meant no. And if they both landed on the eagle, it meant yes. I don't like where this is going. Why are we doing this? And if the coins happened to land to where they were mixed, it meant maybe. While flipping the coins, we had to say the same thing every time. Sara. Sarita. Over and over and over again, we said those 2 words. At first, we were asking really dumb questions, trying to just get some sort of reaction from the coins that made sense. But of course, every time we asked a question, the 2 coins always answered maybe. It didn't matter what we had asked. Maybe after maybe after maybe. When Allie realized that that's all the coins were answering, she started to get uncomfortable pretty quickly. We all noticed it on her face. She said she wanted to stop playing. Y'all need to listen to Allie. Allie's the only one with some sense in this circle. She asked the coins, can I leave the game? And after all those maybes, they answered no. We all laughed a little, obviously nervous, so she asked again, can I leave the game? And again, the coins told us no. This is freaking me out. Genuinely, this is scaring me. Desperately, she asked a few more times, and every time the coins said no. At this point, Alexis started getting annoyed, and she began challenging it, threatening it, saying things like this game is so stupid. She was trying to break the pattern with the coins, tossing them over and over and over again, but the answer didn't change. And it seemed that whatever Alexis was doing was just making it worse. The energy in the room shifted, and for some reason it felt aggressive, like it didn't like that Alexis was challenging it. We kept going because at this point we felt like we couldn't stop because the coins were telling us no, and we were all scared. Scared to leave it that way, scared that we would leave some sort of door open because we didn't have permission to leave the game. The feeling of being trapped genuinely would probably make me spiral. We started something and we needed to properly stop it. And that's when we noticed the animals. The bunnies. Both of them were sitting completely still. And then they both started peeing right there on the floor at the same time. What? That's never happened before with our bunnies. They were well trained and they always used their litter box or went outside. But even after they finished, they still didn't move. For whatever reason, that's what snapped us out of it, and that's what really made us scared. We knew almost instantly that something was not right. And then the dog snapped. Allie's dog started aggressively barking. It was loud, not playful, and not friendly. If the animals are freaking out, something is not right. I remember thinking that even though the dog sounded aggressive, he seemed terrified, and he was facing the door, the one that led outside, the only way in and the only way out. Oh no. You're trapped? You're trapped. The barking got worse, and it was more frantic, like something was right on the other side of the door, or maybe right in front of it. At that point, we all grabbed each other and backed into the corner of the hallway as far away from that door as we could get. None of us wanted to move. We didn't even want to breathe too loudly. We were afraid that if we did, whatever was clearly in front of that door would notice us. I think we're past that. I think you've been noticed. And then, as if somebody had snapped their fingers, it all stopped instantly. Silence. The dog went quiet. Everything around us went still again. And at that point, we didn't even care that we didn't finish the game. We just got up and ran straight into Allie's room, and we locked the door and stayed there for the rest of the night. But none of us slept, and none of us spoke about it. After we had all almost calmed down, we noticed something. Allie had a scratch on her back, a long, fresh mark. And when we tried to explain it, we realized that she was the one with her back facing the door. Whatever we were doing that night, we didn't understand. And we opened a door that shouldn't have been opened. And we invited something in that didn't want to leave.
I started getting notifications that my front door was opening while I was still at work. A few months ago, I installed one of those smart locks onto my front door. It connects to your phone and it notifies you every time it's locked or unlocked, that kind of a thing. At first it was just for convenience, but one afternoon while I was at work, I got a notification and it said that my front door was unlocked. I figured maybe it was a glitch, and then a second later it said front door opened, and that's when I started to get a little weirded out, and so I went onto the app. It showed that the door had been opened by using a code. It wasn't manually opened. The only people who knew the code was me and my sister. So I texted my sister and asked if she stopped by, and she told me no. And so I went on to another one of my apps, and basically I just have a camera system and it faces my entry door. And I went and I looked, and it showed that the front door was open, but nobody was there. It looked like it literally opened by itself. It stayed open for about 10 seconds, and then I literally watched my door close again. Super weird. Tried to brush it off. I went home that night. Everything looked normal. My door was locked when I was arriving home. And everything was fine until about 1:15 a.m. that night, and I got a notification on my phone. It said front door unlocked, and I sat up immediately, and I just sat there and I tried to listen, and I heard a noise. It wasn't super loud. Now, mind you, my bedroom door was cracked open just slightly, so I could see kind of into the hallway. And when I heard this noise, it wasn't anything crazy, but it was like slight movement, like somebody was slowly stepping onto the floor. So I grabbed my phone and I checked my app to look at my entryway of my front door. My front door was open again. It felt very eerie. I sat there and watched it for about 10 seconds. It closed again and it locked on its own. And now I'm thinking, how is my door opening? Is this a glitch in the app? Why is it saying it's locked, unlocked, that kind of a deal when I know that I've locked it? I didn't sleep the rest of the night, and then the next day I went into the app settings to see what was going on. And that's when I noticed something that I didn't notice before. There was another access code listed that I didn't recognize, and I never added in. It said that it was added in 2 weeks ago. There was no name attached. It was just timestamps. I deleted it immediately, and since I deleted it, there hasn't been anything weird going on. However, I will go in and check the app history now and then, and I notice that there are gaps. Gaps of when I know I've locked it or unlocked it or opened my door and it hasn't logged it. As I was looking through, there was one that specifically bothered me, and it was when I was out of town, and there was 3 different notifications and timestamps, and it said that the door was unlocked, and then the front door opened, and then it closed and was locked from the inside. I was out of town, so tell me who or what locked my house from the inside.
Might have known the story of real-life boogeyman.
Last night, a mass shooting took place in Shreveport, Louisiana. 10 people were shot, 8 of whom were children. None of the children made it. The man responsible was 31-year-old Shamar Elkins, who was the father to 7 out of those 8 children. That neighborhood in Shreveport is usually relatively quiet on Sunday mornings, but yesterday morning was different. Police responded to reports of loud bangs in the neighborhood just after 6 a.m. local time on April 19th, and what they found when they arrived at the scene was absolutely horrific. It has been reported that the incident all started on Harrison Street, where Shamar's wife was shot. She is only 34 years old and the mother of his children. She is severely injured, but she did survive. However, Shamar did not stop there, because afterwards he went to another home on West 79th Street where he shot the 8 children and a second adult victim. Like I said, 7 out of the 8 children were his. It sounds like the 8th was a cousin, and the second adult victim is the mother of that 8th child. She also survived. 7 children were inside of the house. An 8th was found dead on the roof after apparently trying to escape. Another child, a 13-year-old boy who was also in the house, opened up a second-story window and jumped off. He suffered some broken bones, but he was able to run to a neighbor's house to then call 911. Some of the other children tried to get away from the back door of the house when everything started happening, but they did not make it. Afterwards, Shamar Elkins ran. He fled toward a tire shop. A neighbor saw him running on a security camera. He then stole a vehicle and he sped off. By that point, authorities had been called and dispatched, and it led to a police chase. They were able to catch up to him, and police then opened fire. Shamar was then pronounced deceased at the scene. But why? Why such a horrible attack? Shamar Elkins was born in 1995, and he had been living in Shreveport for a very long time. He served in the Louisiana Army National Guard from August 2013 to August 2020 as a signal support system specialist and a fire support specialist before he then left the Army. He also did have a criminal history. He was arrested in March of 2019 on a charge of illegal use of weapons on school property, and he had also been arrested for driving when he should not have been driving back in 2019. It also sounds like he struggled very badly with his mental health. Not only that, but he was also having a very hard time with his relationship with the mother of his children. In the days leading up to April 19th, he had spoken to his parents and told them that he didn't want to be here anymore because his wife wanted a divorce and he was, quote, drowning in dark thoughts, unquote. His stepdad tried to give him some words of encouragement, but allegedly Shamar responded with something along the lines of, quote, some people don't come back from their demons, end quote. A cousin of the family has also come out to to say that Shamar and his wife were in the middle of separating and they were due to go to court today, April 20th. So could that have been a motive? We don't know. There's no way to know, but it sounds like it. On Easter Sunday, earlier this month, what is that, like 2 weeks ago, Shamar posted a picture of himself with his kids on Facebook saying that he had attended Easter church service for the first time with all of his children. 4 days later, he also reposted an inspirational quote on Facebook that read, quote, "Dear God, today I ask you to help me guard my mind and my emotions," end quote. So it sounds like he was in a really, not excusing his behavior, by the way, do not get that confused, but it sounds like he was in a very scary, dark place in his head. Why he decided to take out everything that he was feeling on his own 7 kids and an additional child and 2 other adult victims, it will never make sense to me. The reaction from Shreveport, as you can imagine, was immediate and it was devastating. And of course, this literally just happened quite literally last night, so more information, it feels like, is coming out every single hour. But the one thing that we know for sure is that this has broken the hearts of so many people, not only family members, but also just residents of the community. Police Chief Wayne Smith said, quote, "I just don't know what to say. My heart is just taken aback. I cannot begin to imagine how such an event could occur," end quote. And the mayor at a conference stated, quote, "It's a terrible morning in Shreveport, and we all know my heart goes out to this entire community for the tragic event that has taken place this morning." He described the shooting as, quote, "a tragic situation, maybe the worst tragic situation we've ever had," end quote. And then he went on to say, "Our community is grieving the unimaginable loss of innocent children. There are no words that can make sense out of it and no distance that shields us from it." It is devastating. 8 children who will never get to grow old. That's all I have for today. Like I said, it does feel like new information is coming out every single hour. So if you see something after I post this video, feel free to comment it down below. But it's also devastating that Shamar is now gone as well. So what does justice even look like? Who knows? Anyway, thank you for spending time with me today. I hope you guys are having the best day. If not, go do something to make it the best day. Make somebody happy, and I will see you in my next video. Massive kiss on the forehead to every single one of you.
Want to get creeped out? Have you ever heard of the possession of Anna Ecklund? This is one of the most well-documented possession cases to ever exist. And it's one of those ones that is genuinely so unsettling, so creepy, and keeps me up at night. Anna Ecklund was a devout Christian, but at around the age of 14, she started to hear voices that were telling her to do violent and schmexual things. Not only that, but she started to become enraged by religion. She even tried to go to her church and could not physically walk through the doors of her church. It was like something was just completely weighing her down and not allowing her to go inside. No doctors could figure out at the time what was going on with Anna, and she wound up undergoing not 1, but 2 exorcisms. One of those exorcisms lasted 23 days. The Catholic Church is one of the religions that has a very strict process and criteria in order to approve an exorcism on someone. Someone really has to meet that standard for the church to say, okay, yes, this person is possessed. Not only do they have to undergo mental and physical evaluation, but there's also very certain criteria that they have to meet. They have to have strength that that person should just not possess, extreme strength. They have to be able to understand or speak languages that they've never heard before, and they need to have hidden knowledge. Know things that they should just not be able to know. Anna Ecklund absolutely met all of that criteria. Her exorcism is what you picture an exorcism to be. Like, you're thinking of the movies, that's Anna Ecklund's case. We're talking levitating, winding up on the wall, knowing people's secrets that she would have no way of knowing, understanding Latin and Italian and other languages that she had never heard before. In fact, when she had likely only ever finished grade school. This possession story is honestly just so crazy. Jess and I do a deep dive on it on an upcoming episode of Just a Little Stitious. If you're gonna listen to any of our episodes, this one is so creepy. Anyways, that's it for this one. See you next time.
In our last episode, we caught a fucking EVP. Oh God, I know. If you don't know what that is, it's electronic voice phenomena. We were sitting here recording. We audibly heard something in our headphones while we were recording. I've never caught an EVP before. I didn't realize how fucking cool it would be.
I'm really excited about it too, but also happened in my house. So that threw me off just a little bit.
And here we'll play a clip. If they're putting intention into it,
if they're conjuring something up.
If they're inviting something in.
Yeah.
If they're with a group of people. And what was that? So I know you played it for mom and dad.
Mm-hmm.
I played it for them again when I was there for supper because they said they heard it way better on my phone than on your phone. Mom was like, that is hard to explain because I was like,
assholes.
That's what they're saying. They were like, it didn't sound that clear on Jessica's phone. And I was like, I'm not saying that it can't be explained. Like, tell me what it is. Tell me your logical explanation. Like, I'm open to hearing it, but neither of them could come up with what that could have possibly have been.
We listen, we don't get scared, and
we don't judge, let me give you guys a story time of my uncle who practiced witchcraft. Now keep in mind, this man is from my father's side of the family, nah? So it's December time, and as cousins we are deciding where are we going to meet from my father's side, right? We're deciding whose house are we going to visit so that we all can be huddled up together. And we could not be at my mother's house because we had to be somewhere near my grandmother's house. So they decide, no, let's go to Uncle so-and-so's house. And Uncle so-and-so's children are like, yeah, you guys should come through the side. We're like, okay. So, as per usual, we're thinking when we get there, it's December holidays, everybody's done writing and all of that, like we are going to sleep late because we're a lot, and we are thinking we're going to be out there in the streets, like just having fun, because crime rates in the villages is very low. Like nobody will rob you in the villages or like kidnap you unless it's targeted. Do you understand? When we get there, Uncle so-and-so's kids did not tell us that their dad is actually very strict. First day we get there, we are used to like all of us washing the dishes at the same time. So so we were washing dishes in twos, right? So if you're washing the dishes, like we would all be sitting down and talking while the other two washes the dishes. No, not in that house, babe. They would be washing dishes and we would be seated watching TV by force. And Uncle so-and-so is very strict, by the way. We wait for them to wash the dishes. We all get up like, yeah, let's go out. Uncle so-and-so was like, excuse me, go out where? Mind you, I think it was like 7 or 8 of us. And he's like, go where? We're like, oh, we're just going to take a walk. We're coming back. It was 8 p.m. at the time. He was like, no, all of you need to bath so that you can get ready for bed. What? He's like, yeah, I feel like I did not establish the rules with you guys here. You guys are not allowed to leave the house at 5 p.m. As soon as the sun starts setting, you guys have to be back home. Also, you guys are not allowed to sleep late. When it hits 10 p.m., you guys have to all be in bed and your cell phones are going to be taken. Instant regrets. And he tells us that we need to start bathing now. Because there's a lot of us, we all need to start bathing so that we finish fast. And he gives us a timer, 30 minutes each person, because we are a lot. You know, he doesn't want anybody chilling in the water for too long. I'm like, hi guys, we bath, and then all of us bath, and then we go inside the room, and everybody's sleeping on the floor because there's only one bed and we all want to sleep in the same room. So we all sleeping on the floor, our bags are on the other side, we're sleeping, we're still talking, whatever. Mans gets inside the room, no joke, takes all of our phones, like, give me your phones. He counts 8 of us, there has to be 8 phones inside of that box. And he tells us to go to sleep, switches off the lights and tells us to go to sleep immediately. Mind you, Uncle so-and-so's kids are already asleep, babe. We are like, if his kids are sleeping, let's all sleep, yabo. So we're all chilling, whatever, and people are just quiet because as soon as we start talking, like, he can hear us and he keeps on telling us, he keeps on knocking to tell us to go to sleep, and I'm just like, this household is very strict. I'm already contemplating, like, no, like, as soon as we wake up tomorrow, we need to tell the others that, in my mind, I'm like, I need to tell the others that we need to go to my grandmother's house because there's no way our grandma would do this to us. People are falling asleep one by one, guys. I'm counting the ceiling because I'm not tired. We went to bed at around 8 p.m. My body's already after bathing, I don't even remember what time it was, but my body's already tired of laying down. I can't even switch positions. The lights are off. And guys, when there's no time, you don't realize how much time is passing. People are asleep. I'm the only one awake. My sisters are also asleep. I'm like, I start hearing drums outside, you know what I mean? And there's movement in this particular house. I'm like, what are they doing? Are they having a party and making us sleep early? You know what I mean? So, how I see a car, I see car lights, and then I peek through the window, and like a car's coming in the house, and it's filled with people. It's filled with a lot of people. So the car comes in, whatever. I get up to go check out what's happening because Uncle so-and-so and his wife are outside and they are wearing sangoma clocks. Hey guys, I see the time. It was, I think, 1 a.m. That's how long it had been since the time I went to bed. I see that, man, these people are acting a little bit weird. Some people are like looking down, and some people have white things on their faces. And guys, I watch Nigerian movies. And all the time when these people were performing witchcraft, they would have that white calamine thing on their faces. So these people had like rings on their faces, and then some of them had it all on their face. Hey, it was And then, guys, they light a fire, and then they all start chanting in a circle, and then they are beating on the drums, they're singing, you know, but they're not necessarily singing loudly, but they're singing. And another thing I forgot to mention, guys, at my uncle's house, my uncle has cows, né? But there is the one cow that is always closed inside some sort of like kraal thingy, but it's not necessarily a kraal with wooden sticks. It's a kraal that has like a wall, and you can't see the cow that's inside there, but you can always hear it. Now what's crazy is they opened the gate for that thing, but no cow came out, but I could hear a cow mooing. So now I want to go out and like really see, maybe I didn't see the cow coming out, but I want to go out and ask them like, what are you guys doing? Because I am scared. I could feel shivers on my spine. So these people hold each other and they start moving. They start walking in a line and they start moving like this, like a snake. And then they walk, and I don't know what happens to them, you know. They didn't really disappear in front of my eyes, but they walked and then they disappeared somewhere. I don't know. I went out to go and check out like at the fire. So I look at the fire, you know. The fire is, you know, just a regular fire with pellets and charcoal. And then the car now, you know, was closed, but I went closer, like, and I seen through the windscreen. You see where there's the mirror, there was this thing that's hanging and it looked like cow skin or whatever. And I was like, that's not much. And then I go to where this cow that we always hear and we can't see is situated. So I go almost, and then I peek through the kraal. And when I tell you, there were so many things inside there. Obviously traditional healer things, but my uncle is not a traditional healer, even his wife. And there are just so many things in there that like scream traditional healer. It smells, it reeks of traditional herbs. And there are beads, and there's sangoma thingies, and there's also a mirror. But I'm like, there are so many things inside this room. There's no way a cow can fit in here. There is no way. But I'm just like, I start hearing them sing, coming, and I ran back to the house because they left the door open, by the way. I ran back to the house and I sleep. So now I realize that these people are going around in a square, like, you know, around the house, the homestead's yard, and they're going so close to the fence, and I don't know what they're doing, but they're also moving like a snake. Guys, we are sleeping, and when I tell you that my uncle's youngest child stood up, sleepwalking, I'm thinking she's awake. I'm like, hey, like, are you seeing what's happening? I try to pull her and she goes like this, and she goes out, she goes to the people, and then she kneels down, and then they cover her with something, and then they start whispering things in her ears. All of them went by, hey guys, I don't know what was going on that day. They start whispering things to her, and then they start like banging the drums or whatever, and then after that they stop, and then again they walk, and then they disappear, guys. And then after that they sat down all in a circle, and then, like, mind you, these people are not talking, they're just doing standard procedure. They start drinking things. After that, guys, I could not see anymore because I felt like they saw me, because they all started looking at the window, because maybe they felt like somebody was looking at them. I forced myself to go to sleep. The following day, guys, I spoke to my mom in secret and I told her what I had seen. So my mom called somebody that she was, you know, familiar with from the family, and the person was like, hey, Wena, go fetch your kids, what are you doing? And the person was like, hi, you need to go fetch your kids. Like, no, go fetch your kids. I don't know what they told my mom, but I'm pretty sure they told my mom that those people are not good people. And my mom came speeding to fetch us that same day. My mom was there, and she was like, no, there's a ceremony at my grandmother's place and my mom's place, and we need to go there. And she took us, Sana, and we never went there. And you know what's crazy? After my mom fetched us, all the other kids also got picked up by their parents. Some of them stayed in Northwest, and we were in Limpopo, guys, and their parents came to pick up their children. I don't know who heard what, but people came to fetch us. But when it was time for us to go to my dad's mother's house, like my grandma from my dad's side, we used to go perfectly so, but my grandmother would never allow us to go to Uncle so-and-so's house and eat there. Like, she would be like, you eat here and then you go. I feel like the family knows what that person is doing, but they just don't want to say anything.